What the hell is Saw Sports or whatever that last call was talking about? What the hell is that?
Guys are from Free Love, man.
What's the motherfucking deal, man? Welcome to Saw Sports. I am your host, Ed Honcho. Today we're going to get into the 5 takeaways from the Texans versus Colts game that took place this Sunday. If you're not following Saw Sports on all the proper social medias listed below, well, there you go. But let's stop wasting time, man. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let's get in it to win it. So if you don't know how we do this, we go from number 5 down to number 1, usually from worst to best. But I'm going to be honest, there was a lot of bad this last game, so none of these things are really great, but there are things that can be improved upon. I will share my thoughts with that. But let's go ahead and get into it. Number 5, consistency is a concern with this Houston Texans team. From week to week, you don't know who's stepping out on the field. And what I mean by that, yes, we know what players are going to be there. You get an injury report, you know who's going to be there, who's going to be available, and who's not going to be available. But you don't know what the identity of the team is that's stepping out on the field. You know, are we dominant? Are we going to score points? Are we going to struggle? We've seen on the road they were doing well getting in the end zone. For the most part, I believe they were number 1 in the league prior to this weekend. Now they're struggling. And you can talk about a multitude of factors, but a lot of these factors are irrelevant because the key pieces are still there. So one week, Will Fuller catches everything. The next week, can't catch shit. One week, Kemah misses all his kicks. The next week, he's on point. He's the reason you were even relatively in the game. You don't know who's going to show up. You almost don't know who you can rely on. Outside of 1 or 2 players, even the big names haven't been as prevalent this year. And again, like I say, certain people rely on other people to be successful. Certain people have, you know, their destiny in their own hands, but it's questionable. Consistency is key, and right now the Texans are locked out. Let's go ahead and get to the 4th takeaway right now. So the 4th takeaway from this game is pressure doesn't always bust pipes. The Texans were able to get a decent amount of pressure on Jacoby, but no turnovers. We're not able to really have success against him. They weren't able to pick him off. Again, he had a pretty clean game, had some nice yards, 4 touchdowns, pretty much had his way. There were times that they weren't really dropping pressure. You were dropping 8 men, and there were still big holes all over the field that he was able to pick you guys apart. And we can talk about the talent that was on the field, but that comes down to coaching. Now, I've personally been calling for Rack's head since the middle of last season, probably one of the first people when people thought I was crazy when I started saying it. Now I think you got a lot of people on that bandwagon. But, you know, you say, well, this guy was out, that guy was out. That's fine. As your job as a coach is to take the talents you have and make them ready, get them ready to play. When you ever see stories about guys that kind of come out of nowhere and have great careers that you've never heard of, is because they've been coached up properly, because they seek out the right talent and they put them in the right places. Right now, I don't feel like that's happening with Romeo Crennel, with some of the talent we have up front. You got guys who are able to rush the passer. You know, historically, JJ's been a pretty solid guy. He's not getting the pressure, or he's not. He was close a lot, but just, you know, a step short. I don't know if you blame that on Crennel. I don't know if it's JJ getting a little older. A couple things, Mercer's wasn't able to get there. You know, he was on a tear early on this season. Some of the younger guys. I saw Martin's jersey in the picture a few times, but again, that guy we picked up in the Clowney trade, but not quite getting there. That is a problem, because if you can't put pressure on quarterbacks, if you can't hit quarterbacks and make them feel your presence, they're going to be comfortable, and essentially that's what it was. So he was able to make all the throws because he wasn't really worried. And there was a couple of times he stood in there and took some hits because he knew he wasn't going to take that many of them, and so he was okay. He was comfortable. He was fine for pretty much the whole game. So there's a problem with pressure from the Texans. They're blitzing more than ever, but they're really getting there a lot less. So I don't know what they got to do to fix it. Again, I don't know if it's Crennel. I do know it's Crennel. I don't know if it's scheming. We could talk about personnel, but it is what it is. I will commend them because they have made some moves recently and they have been entertaining some things, and we're going to get that further on in the next take or so. But my number 4 takeaway is pressure doesn't always bust pipes. But let's go ahead and get to the 3rd takeaway right now. So number 3, the 3rd takeaway from this game is, yes, I know prior to the game I said injuries were no excuse. And I still feel the same way. Injuries happen, but they really did not have an overall impact on this game in the way they should. It was more of the Texans beating themselves, even with the guys they had on the field, mental mistakes, dumb penalties, things that were hindering themselves. And so, yeah, you lost, Howard wasn't there. Roderick Johnson, again, going up against Justin Houston, I don't think Howard would have fared that much better. I mean, who has he gone up against on that caliber? You got, again, like it was mentioned in the stream, this is a former sack leader. Then you can talk about, even Johnson going down. And Skipper came in and looked relatively decent. So as far as offensively, okay, it is what it is. Will Fuller, yes, a deep threat, but Kenny Stills came in and made some big plays. So the next man up policy was in effect. It was, again, like I say, it was just things that the Texans did that beat themselves. We can talk about the ref touchdown. It is what it is. Not that big of a deal. You still should have been able to overcome that because the opportunities were there. The Texans and the offense and the defense couldn't get on the same page. When the offense was doing a little something, the defense wasn't stopping shit. And then when the defense finally did make a couple of stops, the offense couldn't get the ball in the end zone or was having turnovers. And so, again, that goes back to the lack of consistency. That goes back to the Texans defeating themselves. And, again, you could talk about Gaines. Gaines had one or two good plays, even though he had to fill in. And we could talk about J. Joe, which was something I said, with him coming off the hamstring injury, I didn't think it would be a shoulder thing, but I felt like he was a high risk for injury again coming back so soon with him being an older player. And we've seen J. Joe's history, especially throughout the last few seasons. This is something the Texans should have been prepared for. Now, I will, again, like I was saying in the last take, commend them. They went out and got Garyon Conley. They're entertaining E.J. Gaines. They're entertaining a couple other players. Stephen Mitchell has been boosted up now that Will Fuller's going to be out for a while. That they're being much more aggressive than they have been historically. I will give Bill O'Brien, the GM, credit for that because they're taking L's kind of in the health department and they're going out and making moves. Now, the questionable thing is, why is it that we always go get somebody from the team we're going to play? Remember last year, issue with Will Fuller, you go out and you get Demaryius Thomas, you play the Broncos that week. The issue on the cornerback situation with Roby, Jonathan Joseph, and again, that with them going and getting a couple of more corners, it makes me wonder how bad are some of these situations? Are they really worse than what they're saying? So that's something you got to look out for. But you go and get Garyon Conley, you're finna play the Raiders. Just a weird thing that the Texans do. It is what it is. I wonder if they just watch film and they say, oh, well, that guy's pretty good on the team we're going to play with. Let's see if we get him. So they turned that Jadeveon Clowney pick into Garyon Conley. So, again, you can look at the trade however you want to. I still have my personal feelings about it. People, you're going to feel how you're going to feel no matter what, if you liked it or you didn't like it. But that turned into an additional player. So, again, injuries, yeah, they were there. Yeah, they had a small impact, but the Texans were still in a position to win this game. And, again, you got to overcome certain things to find success. It's just it has to be in that character. So let's go ahead and get into the second takeaway from this Houston Texans versus Indianapolis Colts game. The second, and possibly maybe could have been number one, but just take away from this is, I talked about injuries, but discipline was the deciding factor in this game. You can talk about the Bernard McKinney hit. You can talk about Tunsil, with the false starts. You can talk about penalties here and there. But it was just too many penalties to overcome. Now, I talked about in the games prior to Atlanta, Kansas City, a little bit of a different situation, that how the Texans were able to overcome penalties and still find a way to win. Historically, they haven't been able to do it. Now they've regressed to the mean. Those penalties killing them. Bad plays at the wrong time, killing them. But discipline with QT, knowing the situation. If you can secure it, knock that ball out of the way, like get it out of there. I know that, of course, the receiver's natural instinct is to catch it. But, again, it's just the little things, the discipline things. And what that goes to, and some of y'all are going to be, oh, you're just trying to find a way. But that goes to coaching. Go look at some of these other teams, some of the top-tier teams in the league right now, and I'm not going to say who, you know who I'm talking about. When you have that premier level of coaching, that's part of your culture. Under the Bill O'Brien regime, this team has been undisciplined. Year in and year, I don't care if you're a rookie, I don't care if you're a veteran. Tunsil's guy's been around for a couple of years, and it seems like he's probably had more penalties with this Texans team. And you can talk about, well, they're really still new. He came from an offense that was similar. Now, that was the thing everybody said, he's going to be fine. It won't be a big transition because they do a lot of similar things in Miami that they're doing here in Houston. And so you're seeing some issues with him. And this is not a knock on Tunsil. This is just a part of the Texans culture where we talked about consistency, where we talked about identity. Who are they? The one thing that has been a constant is the lack of discipline. And this is what comes to bite you in those close games when you're playing better, I won't say better talent, but when you're playing teams that kind of have their discipline together, they don't suffer from the issues that you do. Again, and we can talk about some of the mistaken play calls. We can talk about Skipper checking in and the refs missing that. We can talk about the touchdown. Again, all of that is irrelevant because when it still comes down to it, you got to get over that. You're still relatively in the game, and then late in the game when you're making disciplinary mistakes, that is a cultural problem. That is a coaching problem. It starts with the top of the organization and works its way down. So let's get into the number one takeaway right now. My number one takeaway from this game goes back to something I mentioned in the 5 keys last week prior to the game. And I said that Bill O'Brien was going to have to do some things to prove that he turned the corner, that he turned the page. And he did not do that this game. Again, we can talk about a lot of the inconsistencies in execution. But again, where you give credit, you must give blame. I've given him credit for the play calling the last few weeks, even though I do believe Tim Kelly has a big hand in the game planning. And I don't even have a problem with Bill O'Brien's play calling the last game. Yes, there were a few gaffes. But what you notice about great coaches, and the point is that Bill O'Brien does not have the it factor. He's not the guy to get you there. And again, this is not me taking the first opportunity that I can to shit on him. I've been consistent. That's what what you don't get. I've been consistent in my arguments. I'm not just because he has one good game. Oh, go Bill O'Brien. I've never hyped him up, which is crazy. This season, last year I was on the Bill O'Brien train. I told you the playoffs showed me something about him. Bill O'Brien doesn't have the it factor, and I know some of you are going to come excuses with injuries and things of that nature. But look at Bill O'Brien since he's been here. We talked about the discipline issue. We talked about the team lacking an identity. You've had 6 years to establish an identity, a multitude of quarterbacks and things of that nature. Who are you? Who is your coach? What is it about Bill O'Brien that when you look around the league, what about Bill O'Brien stands out compared to other coaches? If you look at Belichick, you know what he is. He's not playing any fucking games. He put his fucking foot on the neck of the Jets last night when prior to this were being recorded and kept going. He's not going to let up. Bill O'Brien's not that guy. He just wants to play, a close game. He doesn't want to embarrass anybody. He wants it to be fun and close, and that comes back and bites him in the ass time and time again. You look at coaches that have that it factor, and what I mean by that are the coaches who can overcome those major obstacles. Look at Sean Payton, guy that has the it factor. Loses his quarterback, he's still winning. So we can talk about injuries, but the biggest injury you can have is losing a quarterback, and not just a quarterback. We're talking about Drew Brees, an all-time great, right? And they're still winning. They're still finding ways to win. That's the it factor. You can look at young guys like Sean McVay, coming to the league and make a splash. It factor. Pete Carroll hasn't been the best the last couple of years and overcome some things, but still remains in that conversation. Got him a ring. Had the it factor, was a winner at USC, comes to the league, becomes a winner. A couple of years, doesn't take very long, he gets him one. What has Bill O'Brien done historically in his career to say he's that guy? Deshaun Watson was a winner in high school, a winner in college, and he does excellent things here in the league. What's on Bill O'Brien's resume? What about Bill O'Brien says, this is the guy to get you there? We can talk about winning divisions when the AFC South is a bad division. And you know it. I know it. What about Bill O'Brien says he has the it factor? Nothing. And I hate to say it, because as much as I sit here and say, I don't like what's going on, I just can't see it. I want the guy to win because I want my team to win. I want him to succeed because I want the Texans to succeed. Do I want him to be here in the long term? Probably not, because I don't see him having the tools to get this team where they need to be. And again, you can talk about, well, that was on the defense. Well, O'Brien co-signed Cornell, a coach who wants to win, a cutthroat coach like Belichick. If he knew that his guy wasn't getting the job done, what do you think he would have done? He would have made the move that's in the best interest of the team, not friendships, not nepotism, not any of those things, and got him out of here, or put him back at assistant head coach. They did it before for Vrabel, so why wouldn't they do it again if necessary? I just don't think Bill O'Brien's the guy. It's not just from this game. It's little tendencies that I've noticed in games prior. I know a lot of you are going to jump on that and say, I'm being negative and hating on the guy. Prove me otherwise. Because when it comes to facing quality competition, in the last 3 of the 4 matches versus the Colts, and even that fourth one you want to talk about was extreme because he let him back in the game, playing conservatively, not doing the Belichick thing. He comes from the Patriot tree. He didn't do the Belichick thing and put his foot on their neck. So what branch did he fall out of this Patriot tree that we love so much? Anyway, that's my number one takeaway. Let's get into the comment of the day. So before we get into the comment of the day, again, I want to remind you, man, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're following Soft Sports on all the proper social media. If you love the Roundtable, make sure you're following them. All of their channels are in the links in the description below. Make sure you're following Soft Sports TV for that Astros, Rockets, Dynamo, Dash, just other Houston sports, NCAA, collegiate, well, same shit, professional, amateur sports conversation. A lot of that's going to come on there. And if you want more, if you want a little bit more sauce, you want some extra sauce, make sure you consider subscribing to the Patreon, patreon.com/saucesports. You're going to get some extra podcasts. You can join the Sauce Sports Discord. We talk live during the games. We chop it up with you, the whole round table. We chop it up in the Discord, and we speak on what's going on during the game. So if you want to be a part of that, consider going to patreon.com/saucesports. But with that being said, let's get into the comment of the day right now. So, the comment of the day today comes from Culture Cultivator, and he says, so when we win, we play nobody. We lose, we trash, and the coach trash. Every team has flaws. Any Sunday you can be beat. Too many penalties, that extended drive. Deshaun missed too many throws. Defense, too many penalties. While what you're saying is true, it happens too often with the Texans. Now, again, if you paid any attention to Soft Sports, we've been consistent. Nobody is jumping on the BOB train like that. I know a lot of people are happy to get the win. Some people show up when we win and don't appear when we lose, but we're not going to get into that. But if you notice that I've said the same thing, who have we beaten besides Kansas City? The Texans have not had success against any team with a winning record currently outside of Kansas City. I made a comment about coaching in the last point. Look at Andy Reid. Just lost his quarterback in Mahomes, and they go out and they blast. Was it Denver? So your coach Bill O'Brien is not the guy. He is not the guy. And while I will commend him on being better this year than he has been, he's still not the guy. It's not good enough. It's not enough to get us there. He's been aggressive in making trades for players and getting talent. We're probably more talented than ever, even with the injuries. Even now with the Fuller going down and going picking up some CBs and things like that, if this doesn't prove to bear fruits very soon, if you have a close game against the Raiders, you come back and have a close game against these are games that should not be close. A quality coach is going to put his foot on teams' necks and continue on. The good teams too. You lost to a backup quarterback in Allen. You lost to a backup quarterback in Brissett. You almost lost to a backup quarterback in Minshew. I mean, you're what is the record? 4-3. You're a half a yard from bringing a 3-14. You know, and so what I'm saying is, you can sit here and we can defend Bill O'Brien all we want to, and that's fine if you do. I'm sure you got valid reasons. I just can't do it because I look at this team and there's just too much talent. This is probably one of the most talented rosters in the NFL, and then you look across the AFC. Again, against a team that has done it historically, time in and time out, a guy who fell out of that tree. They say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. This tree must have been on a fucking hill because this apple fell and rolled down into a valley somewhere, because there is no comparison to one Bill to another. The traits are not similar. The mentalities are not similar. The win records are not similar. But again, I give Bill O'Brien credit for being more aggressive. I give Titus Howard credit for being better than we thought he would overall, even though he's not a left tackle, which is what we said he wouldn't be. Defense, yeah, too many penalties, but who is that on? That's on Cornell. But who co-signed to keep Cornell after the failures from last year? Bill O'Brien, who did some things that weakened this defense, in my opinion, by trading out certain players, regardless of how you feel about them or not. Bill O'Brien. So the head coach, when you're the man, you take responsibility. That's what it is. Leaders eat last. Leaders take the blame. That's just kind of how it is. Deshaun, I don't feel like he was just really that off. I don't think guys were just making catches. It wasn't his best game throwing, but it really wasn't a bad game. Guys weren't making. I wouldn't even say Deshaun was just really off that game. Guys were just not making the catches. There was some miscommunication. The overthrow on Duke Johnson, miscommunication. He knew where he wanted to go. He thought Duke was going to be there. Miscommunication. And I'll attribute that to still building that relationship. QT, that's an interception on him. That's not even on Deshaun. So the two biggest plays, one I'll put on Deshaun, one I won't. But I'm gonna sit here and say, "Oh, Deshaun was just terrible. He was just off." No, I don't put that on the defense. Again, early on, could not stop anybody. Could not do anything to keep us in the game. You let these guys have their way. And again, it was a similar situation. I won't say it was as bad as the playoff game, but it wasn't good. So when we win, when we lose, it's been the same energy. I'm rooting for this team. So yeah, when we win, I'm excited about it. But we have not played anybody. The one win, prove me wrong, the one win that you have against a quality opponent is against Kansas City. Outside of that, you struggled against teams who currently have a winning record. The Chargers, Chargers are terrible. Chargers lost to the Titans. Again, the Panthers, backup quarterback, you lose. The Jags, they're not good. You know, the Saints have gone on again, lost their quarterback, and they're still moving. Well, that had nothing to do with us. We played against Breeze. But what I'm saying is that this team, as much as people wanted to jump on it and say that they're going to be a top-tier team in the AFC, I didn't see it. I told y'all, pump your brakes. Don't say it. Just because we beat Kansas City, it might be a one-off thing. This is not the best team in the AFC. Right now, the best team in the AFC is dominating opponents and showing no mercy. And we're going to have to see those guys in a couple of weeks. And I told you, for Bill O'Brien to prove himself, he's got to beat, to me, he had to beat the Colts twice. You better sweep the Titans, and you also have to beat the Patriots. You did your job by beating the Chiefs, but now you lost one to the Colts. When they come here, because this is what's going to happen when it's come down to the end of the season, it's going to be the Texans and the Colts for the AFC South. The other teams are not really in it. But if the Texans keep playing the way that they have been with the inconsistency, well, you might as well go ahead and crown that other team. And I hate to say that. But with that being said, it's your boy Ed Honcho. Y'all be cool like y'all be cool. But most of all, y'all the freshest motherfucking ingredients in the world. Sauce Nation, y'all stay saucy. I'm out.
Perfect.